What happens when a beloved comedian sits down for what should have been a warm, easy morning chat, only to be met with a barrage of personal jabs, thinly veiled insults, and a host who seemed determined to turn friendliness into friction. In just 46 seconds, a single question would rupture the entire interview, sending ripples of shock through the studio. This is the story of how Lorraine Kelly pushed Ricky Gervais one step too far. The morning had started like any other on the Lorraine show: bright lights, upbeat production music, cheerful energy, and the promise of harmless entertainment for viewers sipping their breakfast tea. Ricky Gervais walked onto the set with his trademark grin, waving to the cheering audience. He was there to promote his newest comedy special, talk a little about his love for animals, maybe crack a few jokes. It was supposed to be simple, breezy morning television, but from the second he settled onto the couch, something felt off. Lorraine Kelly sat across from him wearing a polite smile, though somehow it didn't reach her eyes. The tension was subtle at first, the kind the audience could sense but not quite identify. Ricky leaned back, relaxed, ready for what he assumed would be an easy conversation. He had no idea what was coming. "So, Ricky?" Lorraine began, her voice sweet in a way that felt just slightly artificial. "You're here to talk about your new special. Another hour of you telling everyone how clever you think you are." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter rolled through the audience. Ricky chuckled politely, brushing off the odd opening. "I don't know about clever," he said. "I just try to make people laugh, point out the absurdities in life. That's sort of what comedy is." Lorraine leaned back, arms crossed, her posture shifting from welcoming to interrogative. "Absurdities, right? Some people might say you just like to offend for the sake of it. That you hide behind free speech, when really you're just being mean." Ricky's smile wavered, only for a second, but long enough for the cameras to catch it. "I don't think I'm being mean," he replied calmly. "I'm being honest. There's a difference. Comedy should challenge people a little. If everyone's comfortable all the time, what's the point?" "But who decides where the line is?" Lorraine pressed. "You act like you're above criticism. Like you can say whatever you want, and if people don't like it, they're just too sensitive." The laughter had disappeared now. The room had grown still, viewers shifting in their seats as the tone of the interview hardened. Ricky remained composed. "I don't think I'm above criticism. People can criticize me as much as they want. I welcome it. But there's a difference between criticism and trying to silence someone because you don't like their opinion." Lorraine's smile sharpened. "So you admit you say things people don't like?" "Of course," Ricky replied. "That's comedy. Not everyone will like everything I say. I'm not trying to please everyone. I'm trying to be honest and funny. Sometimes honesty makes people uncomfortable." "Uncomfortable?" she repeated, almost tasting the word. "Is that what you call it when you mock people's beliefs? When you make fun of things that are sacred to them?" "Nothing is sacred in comedy," Ricky said. "That's the whole point. If we start declaring certain topics off limits, then we're not really exploring ideas. We're just reinforcing whatever the current orthodoxy is." Lorraine laughed. It was not a friendly sound. "Current orthodoxy. Listen to you with your big words. Let me ask you something simpler." Her expression hardened. "Do you actually care about anyone other than yourself?" The audience gasped. Some even leaned forward. "I'm sorry, what?" Ricky asked, blinking. "You heard me," Lorraine said, her voice turning icy. "Do you care about anyone else? Or is everything just about Ricky Gervais staying relevant?" Ricky straightened. "That's a pretty hostile question, Lorraine. I came here to talk about my work, not to be personally attacked." "Attacked?" she scoffed. "I'm just asking questions. Isn't that what you always preach? Tough questions. Or does that only apply when you're the one asking them? There's a difference between a tough question and a baseless accusation." Ricky replied, steady but firm. "You're calling me selfish with no evidence. I care deeply about animals, about causes I support." "Oh, the animal thing," she interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "Yes, we all know how much you love your cat. Very touching. But what about people, Ricky? What about the people you offend? If someone doesn't like my jokes, they don't have to watch," Ricky said. "But I'm not going to apologize just because some people don't have a sense of humor." "There it is." Lorraine pointed at him triumphantly. "Anyone who doesn't like you doesn't have a sense of humor. Did it ever occur to you that maybe you're just not as funny as you think you are?" Ricky stared at her now, openly baffled. What is this? Did I do something to you? Because this feels personal. Everything's about you, isn't it? Lorraine shot back. Maybe you're just overrated. Maybe you've been doing the same shtick for years and people are finally starting to see through it. The studio fell into absolute, breath-held silence, and the moment that would shatter the interview had finally arrived. Even the crew members were exchanging uneasy glances now, quietly shifting behind the cameras as if unsure whether to keep rolling or step in. This was not how morning television was supposed to go, not by a long shot. The bright set, usually filled with chatter and laughter, felt strangely claustrophobic, as though the air itself had thickened with discomfort. Ricky rubbed his face with both hands. "Okay," he said, sounding genuinely bewildered. "I'm honestly confused. I came here to promote my special and have a nice conversation. Instead, you're attacking me personally." "Why? I'm not attacking you," Lorraine replied sharply, though her tone betrayed her words. "I'm asking the questions other people are too polite to ask. Someone needs to hold you accountable." Ricky blinked at her, incredulous. "Accountable for what? For being a comedian? For having opinions? What exactly am I being held accountable for? For thinking you're better than everyone else?" Lorraine snapped. "For acting like you're the only person who understands how the world works. For being smug." But Ricky let out a short laugh, but there was no amusement in it. "Smug, right? So you invited me on your show just to call me smug?" "I invited you on because people watch," Lorraine replied bluntly. "But that doesn't mean I have to pretend to like you or think you're some kind of genius." "I never asked you to think I'm a genius," Ricky said, his patience thinning. "I just expected basic professionalism." "This is bizarre." Lorraine leaned forward, her eyes narrowing with a sharpness that made some of the crew look away. "You know what's bizarre? That you've built an entire career on being offensive, and then act surprised when someone calls you out on it." "I'm not surprised someone calls me out," Ricky said, his voice rising ever so slightly. "I'm surprised a professional broadcaster invited me onto her show just to insult me. That's not accountability, that's just being rude." "Oh, now I'm rude," Lorraine replied with mocking disbelief. "The man who has made millions saying whatever he wants about whoever he wants thinks I'm rude. That's rich." "There's a context to comedy," Ricky said, trying desperately to hold on to his composure. "When I'm on stage, people know what they're signing up for. They know it's comedy. They expect boundaries to be pushed. But this," he gestured around them, "this is an interview. Different setting. Different expectations. Rules." Lorraine scoffed. "You love rules when they work in your favor. But when it comes to your own comedy, suddenly there are no rules. You can't have it both ways." "Ricky, I'm not trying to have it both ways," he answered, frustration sharpening his tone. "I'm saying there's a time and place for different kinds of conversations. And ambushing your guest with personal attacks is unprofessional no matter what they do for a living." "Ambushing," Lorraine repeated with a sneer. "Such a victim. Poor Ricky Gervais. Can dish it out but can't take it." "This isn't about whether I can take it," Ricky shot back. "I've taken criticism for years. I can handle criticism. But you're not criticizing my work. You're not engaging with anything I actually do. You're just being nasty for the sake of being nasty." Lorraine smiled coldly. "Maybe you're just finally meeting someone who isn't impressed by you." "I don't need everyone to be impressed," Ricky said, voice taut. "But I do expect courtesy. You're acting like I personally wronged you." "Maybe you have," she said cryptically. Ricky paused, frowning. "What does that mean?" "It means maybe I'm tired of people like you," Lorraine said, her voice growing louder, harsher. "People who think they're so important. People who think the rules don't apply to them. People who mock others and then cry when someone gives them a taste of their own medicine." "I'm not crying," Ricky replied firmly. "I'm pointing out that you're being unprofessional." "Big difference." "Unprofessional," Lorraine repeated, spitting the word back at him. "Coming from someone who built a career on being unprofessional. That's hilarious." "My comedy is my job," Ricky said. "Provocation is part of that job. But when I'm here as a guest, I'm not performing. I'm trying to have a normal conversation." Lorraine gave a bitter laugh. "You're never just a person. You're always performing, always trying to be the smartest in the room. It must be exhausting." "You know what's exhausting?" Ricky replied. the edge in his voice unmistakable now. Trying to talk to someone who clearly has an agenda. I don't know what I did to upset you, but this is ridiculous. There you go again, she said. Thinking everything's about you. Maybe it's not what you did. Maybe it's what you represent. The arrogance, the self-importance, the belief that you can say anything without consequences. I've never said there are no consequences, Ricky countered. People can criticize me, protest me, ignore me. That's fine, but you invited me here. I didn't force my way onto this set. Lorraine's voice dropped to an icy whisper. Maybe you're the villain. Ricky stared at her stunned. Excuse me. Maybe you are the villain, she repeated more loudly. Maybe your whole nice guy act is just that, an act. Maybe underneath it all, you're just another privileged man punching down and calling it comedy. Ricky's jaw tightened. Punching down? Really? Making fun of powerful institutions and authority figures as punching down? You make fun of everyone. Lorraine shot back, and the studio fell into a heavy, breathless silence. You don't discriminate, Lorraine said, lifting her chin as if she were delivering a moral verdict. You're an equal opportunity offender. Is that supposed to make it better? It means I'm not targeting vulnerable people, Ricky replied, trying to keep his voice steady. I challenge ideas and beliefs. I don't attack individuals based on who they are. Tell that to the people who feel attacked by your jokes. She fired back. Feeling attacked and being attacked are two completely different things, Ricky said. If I make a joke about religion, I'm not attacking religious people. I'm challenging belief systems. People can believe whatever they want. But you think some of those beliefs are stupid, Lorraine said, folding her arms. Some of them, yes, Ricky admitted without hesitation. That's my right. Just like it's your right to think my comedy is stupid, but I'm not sitting here calling you names or questioning your character. Maybe you should, Lorraine said, smirking. Might make for better television. Ricky stared at her baffled. This is surreal. You're actually proud of how you're behaving right now. I'm being honest, Lorraine replied. You claim to value honesty. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty, Ricky said. You can be truthful without being mean. You can ask tough questions without making them personal. Everything's personal, Lorraine insisted. That's what you don't understand. When you make jokes about people's beliefs, their identities, their lives, it's personal to them. You don't get to hide behind the idea that it's comedy and expect that to excuse everything. I'm not hiding behind anything, Ricky said, his voice strained but controlled. Comedy is supposed to challenge us. It's supposed to make us uncomfortable sometimes. That's how we grow, how we think in new ways. Or maybe, Lorraine said, leaning back with a satisfied expression, it's just how you justify being cruel. That was the breaking point. Ricky suddenly stood up. The audience gasped, even the crew members stiffened. He looked down at Lorraine, his expression a mixture of anger, disbelief, and profound disappointment. You know what? He said. I don't need this. I came here in good faith. I was ready to have an actual conversation, but you clearly just wanted to attack me. So I'm done. For the first time since the interview began, Lorraine looked startled. You're leaving? Yes, Ricky said. I don't have to sit here and be insulted. You can think whatever you want about me, but I'm not going to sit here like punching bag number 3 on your morning TV rundown. See, Lorraine said, turning to the camera with forced confidence. This is what happens when you challenge him. He runs away. Ricky stopped mid-step, turned back slowly and said, I'm not running away. I'm choosing not to participate in whatever this is. There's a difference. You wanted to tear me down to make yourself look bold, but I'm not playing along. I'm just doing my job. Lorraine shot back. No, Ricky said, the calm in his voice more cutting than any shout. Your job is to interview guests, to have conversations, even challenging ones, respectfully. What you're doing is something else entirely, and I don't know if you're having a bad day or if you just hate me, but either way, I'm not staying. Lorraine stood too, her voice rising. Fine. Leave. Prove my point that you can't handle criticism. This isn't criticism, Ricky said, unclipping his microphone. This is a personal attack, and I don't care how famous you are or how long you've been hosting this show. You don't get to treat people this way. People? Lorraine scoffed. You're not people. You're a celebrity. You signed up for this. I signed up to be a comedian, Ricky said. Not to be verbally abused by someone who's supposed to be a professional. There's a line, Lorraine, and you crossed it 10 minutes ago. The crew froze, unsure what to do. Cameras continued rolling, silently witnessing the unraveling of a live television disaster. So that's it. Lorraine called out as Ricky walked toward the exit. You're storming off like a child. Ricky turned one last time. I'm leaving like an adult who knows when a situation isn't worth engaging with anymore. You wanted drama. You wanted a moment. Well, congratulations. You got one. Just not the one you planned. What's that supposed to mean? She demanded. It means everyone watching will see exactly who the problem is, Ricky said. I came here to talk about my work. You turned it into a personal attack. They'll see that. They'll know. Lorraine's face went red. You think you're so clever? No, Ricky said quietly. I just think I deserve better than this. Everyone does. He walked off the set. The studio doors shut behind him with a heavy, echoing thud. The audience sat frozen, murmuring in low, uncomfortable whispers. Lorraine stood alone, microphone still on, staring at the empty space where her guest had been. Well, she finally said with a shaky laugh, I guess that's that. Looks like Ricky Gervais can't take what he dishes out. But no one laughed with her. The cheerful morning show energy had evaporated, replaced by something cold, unsettled, and undeniable. Everyone knew it. The moment had gone too far, and the audience wasn't on her side. Backstage, Ricky was already shoving his notes and belongings into his bag, the adrenaline of the confrontation still pulsing through him. A producer rushed up, breathless and clearly rattled, apologizing over and over while trying to coax him into returning to the set. But Ricky didn't even pause. He shook his head firmly, exhaustion and disbelief etched into his expression. I'm sorry, he said quietly, but I'm not going back out there. That was completely unprofessional, and I'm not going to subject myself to more of it. The producer looked stricken, torn between his loyalty to the show and his understanding of what had just happened. She's under a lot of pressure, he offered weakly. The ratings have been down. I think she just wanted to create a moment. At my expense, Ricky replied sharply. No thanks. I've been in this business long enough to recognize when I'm being used. And that's exactly what this was. She didn't want to interview me. She wanted to take me down a peg. Well, she can do that without me. While Ricky exited the backstage hallway, Lorraine was still on set, attempting to salvage what remained of the show. But her usual bright energy had evaporated. She stumbled through the next segment, her voice noticeably shaky, her smile stretched thin. The studio audience could feel it. Even the remaining guests sensed the tension clinging to the air like static. Something had cracked, visibly, undeniably, and everyone knew it. During the commercial break, the audience began to whisper among themselves. Some were still stunned into silence, replaying the confrontation in their minds. Others spoke in hushed, urgent tones about what they had just witnessed. Many felt sympathy for Ricky, agreeing that Lorraine had crossed a line. A few attempted to defend her, insisting that Ricky was controversial and could handle tough questions. But even those voices sounded uncertain, as if they didn't fully believe what they were saying. That wasn't challenging him, one woman whispered. That was just being mean. She didn't ask him anything about his work. She just attacked him. Another nodded. Yeah, it was uncomfortable to watch. This is supposed to be a fun morning show. By the time the show wrapped, a general consensus had formed. Whatever Lorraine's intentions, stress, ratings pressure, frustration, she had treated a guest unfairly, and the cameras had caught every second of it. In an era where moments go viral in minutes, that was a problem she could not easily outrun, and it didn't take long. Within hours, clips of the interview were circulating online, spreading across platforms faster than the network's PR team could brace for impact. People watched in disbelief as Lorraine's questions shifted from probing to personal, then from personal to outright hostile. They watched Ricky try, again and again, to redirect the conversation back to his work, his process, his intentions. And they watched him finally reach his breaking point and walk off the set. The reactions came swiftly, loudly, and overwhelmingly. Ricky was praised for standing up for himself. Lorraine was criticized for crossing boundaries. Think pieces sprang up across entertainment sites. Social media erupted with debates and commentary. Everyone seemed to have something to say. Some people defended Lorraine, pointing out that Ricky had faced harsh criticism throughout his career and should have been equipped to handle tough questions. But most viewers disagreed. They argued that there was a clear difference between legitimate criticism and a personal attack, between challenging someone and belittling them. They noted that Lorraine hadn't discussed Ricky's work at all. She had gone straight for his character, trying to paint him as a villain rather than engaging with the ideas behind his comedy. The moment that stood out to most viewers came when Lorraine launched into a baseless accusation, shifting the conversation from challenging opinions to questioning Ricky as a person. That, for many, was the breaking point. Up until then, the interview had been tense but still tolerable. After that moment, the tone shifted into something unmistakably hostile. Comedy fans rallied behind Ricky. They pointed out that his entire career was built on challenging norms, pushing boundaries, and provoking thought, not merely offending people for the sake of shock value. They highlighted how, in countless past interviews, he had been open, thoughtful, and willing to engage with criticism. But what happened on Lorraine's show had not been thoughtful questioning. It had been an ambush. Supporters of Lorraine tried to argue that she was simply doing what Ricky does, challenging someone, pushing them. But that argument fell flat for most viewers. A comedian on a stage and a talk show host interviewing a guest operate in completely different contexts, different expectations, different responsibilities, different rules. And this time, the viewers had made their judgment clear. When someone buys a ticket to see Ricky Gervais perform, they know exactly what they're signing up for. They're choosing to enter a world of sharp wit, uncomfortable truths, and provocative comedy. They expect to be challenged, to be pushed, to laugh at things they're not always sure they should. And most importantly, they choose to be there. But appearing on a morning talk show is a different matter entirely. A guest expects professionalism, even when the questions are tough. They expect respect, even when the conversation becomes uncomfortable. Hosts can probe, challenge, debate, but they're still expected to maintain a certain level of courtesy. Lorraine had violated that unspoken contract. She hadn't invited Ricky for a conversation. She'd invited him for an ambush. And in doing so, she revealed something unsettling about her own approach. Something that many viewers found not bold but troubling. What made the entire debacle so frustrating was how unnecessary it all was. Ricky had arrived ready to talk. He had stories to tell, ideas to share, perspectives honed by years of performing and creating. He could have discussed his new special, his writing process, his thoughts on the changing landscape of comedy. It could have been a fascinating, insightful interview. Engaging, entertaining, even thought-provoking. Instead, Lorraine chose confrontation over conversation. She threw away a valuable opportunity in exchange for a few minutes of chaotic television. And if a goal was to go viral or spike the ratings, the plan backfired spectacularly. Yes, the clip went viral, but not in the way she wanted. Viewers didn't praise her boldness. They criticized her cruelty. They didn't applaud her toughness. They questioned her professionalism. To many, she appeared petty, reactive, and unprepared. In the unforgiving court of public opinion, that kind of impression is hard to shake. The incident also sparked a broader conversation about the state of interview culture itself. When did it become normal for hosts to blindside their guests? When did basic courtesy start to feel optional? There is real value in challenging public figures. Journalists should hold people accountable. But there's a line between accountability and hostility. A skilled interviewer can ask sharp questions without turning them into blades. They can push someone without trying to push them down. They can create tension without creating cruelty. Lorraine had failed at all of that. What made matters worse was the way she tried to spin the situation as it was falling apart. Even as Ricky stood up and walked off the set, she claimed he couldn't handle criticism, as if his refusal to tolerate personal attacks somehow made him weak. But viewers knew better. They could see the difference between criticism and mistreatment. Ricky had not walked away from hard questions, he had walked away from disrespect. In the days that followed, support for Ricky poured in from across the entertainment industry. Comedians praised him for setting a boundary. Many shared their own stories. Moments when hosts had crossed lines, belittled guests, or tried to provoke reactions for the sake of headlines. It became clear this wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a growing tendency for talk show hosts to confuse hostility with courage. Ricky's walkout sent a message that resonated far beyond a single morning show. It reminded viewers and hosts that guests have rights too, that professionalism still matters, that a platform doesn't give someone permission to bully, belittle, or humiliate the people sitting across from them. Some viewers wondered whether something had happened between Ricky and Lorraine before the cameras rolled. Some off-screen exchange that might explain her aggression. But no such reports ever surfaced. It appeared she had simply decided to go after Ricky, whether out of genuine dislike or in pursuit of a sensational moment. Whatever her motivation, the damage was done, and ironically she had damaged her own reputation far more than she hurt Ricky's. He walked away looking calm, dignified, and principled. She walked away looking mean-spirited and unprofessional. In an industry built on presentation, that contrast was hard to ignore. The entire episode served as a powerful reminder of an essential truth. In entertainment and in life, how you treat people matters. Being clever, provocative, or attention-grabbing does not excuse cruelty. When you cross that line, you face consequences. For Ricky Gervais, those 46 chaotic seconds weren't just about self-defense. They were about setting a standard. A reminder that even in a world where everything feels loud, chaotic, and performative, some boundaries still matter. And when someone crosses those boundaries, you don't have to sit there and take it. You can stand up. You can walk away. You can refuse to participate in your own mistreatment. That's exactly what Ricky did. And in doing so, he reminded everyone watching that dignity is not negotiable, respect is not optional, and sometimes the most powerful sentence you can speak is simply, "I deserve better than this," and mean it.